Well, good morning and welcome. My name is Ginger Bell. I have with me Matt Coles, and I want to wish you a very happy new year. Matt, it's the first time I've talked to you in 2026. So how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity. The year has hit me right in the face, so I'm ready to rock and roll.
I am going to do two things, though. I have a handout of the slides we're going through, and then also a workbook. And so, for those of you who joined us in our series that Matt and I did last year, it was a 6-month series, very similar. We're doing a 6-month series this time. But really, what we're going through for this year expands on what we did last year. So, Matt, a couple of things that I'm going to do for those of you who are on the call, for those of you who are listening to the recordings, is I'm going to include all of our series from last year. So if you want to go through that from what we did last year, you can do that. Last year we went through business planning, which included your branding, your marketing, your voice, those kind of things. And this year, what we're going to do is we're going to expand on that. And we're going to really get into diving deeper into that plan. So we're going to talk some about goal setting. We're going to talk about leadership today. So those are some of the things we're going to focus on. So what I put into the chat is a workbook. And because obviously this session is, 35, 45 minutes, you're not going to have an opportunity to go through the entire workbook. But what I recommend you do is go back, take some time, a Saturday, take some time on a Sunday, maybe not this Sunday because there's a lot of football going on, but make sure and go back and fill that workbook out because, Matt, that was the thing last year when we did this series, we got a lot of feedback on, right?
Yeah, so super successful series last year, and I don't think Ginger, when we put this together, I don't think you and I thought we were going to have the success that we had with regards to the amount of people that reached back out, and it really just comes down to in our space, and I said this before, a lot of people are very good originators and they go and open up their own shop and they say, hey, I know how to originate, I know how to do this. And then when they get to owning a business and starting a business and wanting to recruit, which is what a lot of people are trying to do right now, when they go to recruit, the LO says, okay, well, what's your mission statement? Who am I working for? And you don't have that written down. You don't have your playbook essentially and your mission statement built out. It kind of reflects pretty poorly on some people that are trying to be a business owner and trying to get people to come in and join their organization. You may be the very best originator out there, and you may be very good about explaining it to people, but when you're recruiting and or trying to expand into different markets or to add people to your sales team, you really got to have something that's presentable to people so that they have something to point to and say, okay, I align with that. Let's go. Let's hit the roads. Let's get going. So super important to go through this process and to take the time to break it down. I know, and I know we're going to probably touch on this a million times. I am terrible about starting at putting pen to paper, meaning I have this vision, I have this idea of what I want to do. And my dear friend, Mr. Chat GPT has been really successful in helping me get this started, right? And I know we're going to talk a lot about it, but if you can just leverage it to get started, right? Start the first 2 or 3 steps, and then you let your own creativity and your own moral compass start to take place. You'll be in a really successful 2026.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're going to dive in now. And the workshop, what we're doing in this structure, it's kind of like a workshop. So if you've had an opportunity to do live workshops, I love doing live workshops because you really get to get in and to work on things. Because we're doing this virtually, what we're going to do is we're going to divide things into smaller segments. So each month you can work on a different segment. We're going to talk about your business planning, like Matt talked about. We're going to do some monthly deep dives. So I'm going to have a workbook for you every single month. So you can go and you can fill that out. The workbook will have some exercises, some actionable outcomes to look at. And that's your homework assignment. So it's up to you to do this. And I know you're busy, but it's a matter of executing on those plans, and it helps you in that growth strategy. And even if you're not, so if you're not planning on building your business, say, I don't want any other loan officers, that's okay. This can help you in terms of everything that you're doing with your planning with yourself, you are your own business. And a lot of times, Matt, we forget that we are our own business. So this can help you with that. So these are the 6 different areas that we're going to go through in this series. The first one, and we're going to work on today, is defining your leadership identity. So who are you as a leader? Whether you're leading for managing, for growing your team, we're building into your community, defining what that leadership looks like. The next month, we're going to talk about your vision casting, not just goal setting, but your vision casting. And that really expands on what your goal setting is. The third month, we're going to get into your mission, your vision, your core values, those things that Matt talked about. Fourth, we're going to talk about time blocking for strategy, not just being that firefighter. Then we're going to get into the 5th month, some metrics. So again, what should you be looking at in order to attain the goals and the vision that you're looking for? And then finally, what's your focus and priorities? What should you be looking at? What should you be focusing on? And so each month, deep dive, guided exercise. We do have opportunities for Q&A. So if you do have questions as we go throughout today, please feel free to type them in the chat box. And Matt, let's just go ahead and make sure that everyone knows how to use the chat box. I'm going to go ahead and put our, because I know a lot of you have joined after I've already put this up there. So let me know if you can download, and I'm going to send out an email too. I am recording this. I'm going to send out an email to everyone tomorrow with a copy of the recording, along with these 2 items that I'm sending to you right now that's in the chat. And if someone can just let me know, type into the chat box if you're getting that information, okay? Okay, good. Sue, thank you. You are always so good at sharing information and interacting. I love that. So we're getting funny comments from you guys. So let's dive in here. Okay, leadership. Leadership is not about your title. It's about your identity. It's about how you embody yourself each and every day. That is what leadership is. And so what we're going to get into is defining what your leadership style is and what your identity is. That's part of the workbook. So what I'm going to go through in the slides really talks about what I want you to work on in the workbook. And the first thing goes through your mindset. And so before we start talking about your revenue targets or your marketing strategies, we need to address the most critical factor in your success, and that's your leadership mindset. The way you show up, the standards you set, the identity you embrace, that determines whether you're simply busy or you're genuinely building something that's transformative, that's your business that you want to focus on. And so what I want to do, and Matt, you're really good about doing this and looking into the future. So I want you to think about and get into your mindset right now. Fast forward to December 31st, 2026. You've just finished your most successful year yet, not because you hustled harder, but because you led smarter. You led yourself smarter. You led your team smarter. You led your referral partners smarter. And so this isn't just wishful thinking. It's about defining a very clear identity that will guide your actions every day between now and then. And so the first thing gets into this identity statement. And Matt, I think this is powerful to do, right? Where you fill in the blank. In 2026, I led as someone who, and then fill in the blank. And you think about what that looks like, right?
Yeah. So, Ginger, I don't know if you're supposed to be sharing something on the screen right now.
I am. Are you not seeing it?
No.
Oh, well, that would help. Let me see about sharing, but I'll
Um,
go ahead and let you talk.
yeah, no, I think that everyone is full of gusto on January 1st, 2026. And I'm sure there's some stat that probably applies to today, January 20th, probably 85% of that gusto is gone, right? I mean, ultimately what we're trying to accomplish when we set out our goals for 2025 or 2026, I apologize, is looking at it in a macro level of this is what I want to accomplish. I've shared with you, Ginger, before that in the past I've had production leaders that have come to me and say, okay, well, what numbers are you going to hit in 2026? And I say, well, you tell me what interest rates are going to be in the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and fourth quarter, and I'll tell you what numbers I'm going to hit. While we do need that type of budgeting and all that goes into our planning, really what I'm focused on are what are the foundation that we laid in the previous years and what are we building upon? So I know over here at FirstFunding, we've spent a lot of time building out certain projects, and now they're starting to come fruition. And so when I laid out my 2026 mindset, it was about execution of that. I spent the last 2 years building it. Now I went forward with the execution of it and what that means for me. And when I'm looking at the leadership side of things, the other biggest thing that we want to make sure that we do is we give ourselves wiggle room to shift our leadership. I don't think we give ourselves enough grace to say, you know what, I have this fire or I have something that's become more important than I need to deal with. And that was changing my leadership. Now, projects can change, right? I can get a call from my leadership that says, hey, you know what? We need to shift focus and you need to be flexible enough for that. So when I look at what I'm trying to accomplish for the year, going to this question that you answer, I know what my mindset is today, first quarter 2026. It may shift, and I have to give myself the flexibility to be able to do that in March, June, August, whatever it might be, right? So just as we're writing down our action plans and our leadership styles, we want to make sure that we give ourselves the grace to be able to shift depending on where the market is taking us.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, that is a leadership trait, exactly what you're talking about, is having that ability to shift. And that's important in the industry that we're in because markets shift so quickly. And so, when you're looking at that, Matt, and the next action item is to list 3 qualities or leadership traits that you want to embody this year. And that might be the ability to shift faster. I always joke, I don't have a tattoo, but I said if I ever had a tattoo, it would probably be shift hard, shift fast, because that's one of the things that I've learned in this industry is you have to be able to move quickly and you have to not be afraid of that. And part of that too, as a leader, is making those decisions that you need to make. And so being able to identify that. And that's really part of this exercise, Matt, is looking at in order to be able to grow, what are the leadership traits that you need to have? So, when you think about leaders that you admire, maybe it's been, a boss you've had in the past or someone in your community, or, my son was very involved with scouting, so we had some great leaders there. So when you're thinking about what leadership traits that you want to embody this year, or you want to build on, or you want to grow, or you want to make, you can develop those. Just because it's something you haven't had in the past doesn't mean it's not something that you can develop today. And so that's part of going through this exercise, is to be able to look at what kind of leader have I been? What kind of leader am I on right now? And what kind of leader do I want to be in the future? And then getting into that, because your leadership identity, who you are, who you think you are, who you act you are, shapes everything. It's how you make your decisions. As Matt said, it's how you lead your team. It's how you approach your growth. And so that part of it is very important. And so this is one of those, activities to go through. And, if we can take a quick second, if someone can just type in the chat for me, what are some of the leadership traits that, that's important to you? So when you think about that, what is in 2026, what's kind of the leadership identity that you want to have? And some of the leadership traits that you want to have, that you want to embody, that would be considered growth for you. So feel free to type those in the chat as you're going along there as well.
I think that one of the things while everyone's putting in their thoughts was, Ginger, you see me go through my evolution as a leader in our industry. I am not ashamed, and people probably have heard me tell the story a million times. I was a terrible leader when I first was put into a leadership position. And then over the years, I always thought that in order to be a good leader, you had to say yes to everything, right?
Mm.
Yes, I want to take on that project. Yes, I want to do this. Yes, I want to take that on. And one of the things I'm very focused on this year as a leader is I don't need to say yes to everything that comes to my plate. And I think that's really going to help me focus. Um, I have made it known to the people that who like to put things on my plate, like I will be saying no to some requests, right?
Right?
Because I just, it's not going to ultimately help my goal for what I'm trying to accomplish this year at First Funding.
Yeah.
Uh,
And
and I'm going to,
sometimes go ahead.
yeah, I was just going to say, I'm going to really take stock of that as I go forward, because if it's not going to benefit myself or my sales team or my organization, the answer is probably going to be no.
Yeah. And this is something to think about too. It doesn't necessarily need to be no. My friend Carl White with Mortgage Marketing Animals has a saying that I absolutely love that he says, if not you, then who? And Dan Kennedy wrote a book that was titled that, and it's very true. So even though you may say no to something, if it makes sense to do it, then maybe you need to find someone else on your team or someone you can delegate that to. And so it's a matter of managing your time. We're going to get into that when we get into some of the firefighting things that we do also. Okay, so next we're going to talk about the vision casting. And so, can you guys see my screen okay?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So I'm sorry I wasn't sharing that before. And so we talked about your leadership identity. I want you to work on that. And it could even be like, hey, this wasn't my year of burnout. It was a year of alignment. It was a year of growth. It was a learn of, I got into smart leadership. And so what that looks like is important. And that gets into your vision casting. So your vision turns your goals into something that's more meaningful. And that's really the different. We talk about goals all the time, but it's really having that vision of what that looks like. It's not just about hitting your numbers. It's about building a business. It's about a life that you're proud of. And so having that vision is important because without the vision, goals are just tasks. And when you can see it clearly and you can feel it deeply, then you're far more likely to create it. I was on a plane, as I know, Matt, you've been on a lot of planes the past couple of weeks, and watched a movie that they said when you find your why, you find your way. And that's part of what getting into the vision really is. And so one of the exercises in this portion is to go through these 4 different pillars. And so the 4 different pillars is, first of all, obviously you need to have your monthly revenue goals. And so what that looks like. And then getting into what's your team structure and getting into the vision again. What does that look like? What does it feel like? What are the roles? And what does that do to free you up? As Matt said, he's going to be saying no to some things, but he's also built a team that he's been able to take a lot of things that he used to do and allocate it to them. And so part of that team structure and looking at that vision, what that looks like, is putting that together. And then also, and went through this last year, Matt, where the ideal client profile. And so who are you serving at the highest level? And having an honest conversation with yourself about who your perfect client is, who your perfect real estate partner, who your perfect financial planner partner, those kind of things. Who is that? Having that clarity helps you attract that right type of business. And then finally, your personal success definition. So what that looks like, it's just for you. And your vision has to include why it matters. That why is important, right?
Yeah, the revenue goal is something that, in a different way I talked about with my sales team this year. And it is always an evolution of trying to set. That's why in this slide it says not a stretch hope, right? Typically, because I do have a very young sales team,
Right.
and it takes a while to get, to get to 100%, where what you're trying to achieve, or even 80% or 70%. And oftentimes when I talk to a person that's up for their first annual, let's put our goals together conversation, let's figure out what we want to do, they always way overshoot the expectations of what they can do. And I appreciate that about them, but that's not a sense of reality. And I almost feel like they're giving me an answer that they think that I want to hear,
Mhm.
not that they think that they can actually achieve, right? So, for example, I had a young salesperson who, when we did our goals for 2026, we're a unit-based, we count widgets essentially, right? And it went from like 400 widgets to 1,400 widgets in like a 3-month window. And I'm like, well, what's going to change that's going to make that happen? What's the reality that's going to make that happen? And the problem with that, and I've dealt with this before, is the minute that they are not ever going to be anywhere close to the 1,400 widgets, they start losing motivation
Yep.
and the goals start to go, right? And so that's why setting realistic expectations is important. It's not for the number, and I'm sure, but budgeting and everything like that, but it's also for the continued motivation to put the next foot forward.
Yeah. It's so
And then,
important.
and then the client profile, I talk to a lot of loan agents on a regular basis, and I always ask them, like, who's your ideal realtor? And they always give a number of transactions that they would
Mhm.
like their realtor partners to close with, you know? And I said, well, how stringent are you to that? Like, do you take a call from someone who is, this is their first, it's October and they haven't sold a property yet? They're like, yeah, I'll take it. It's like, okay, well, like you're going to deal with a certain sense of frustration because now you're making an exception to your own ideal client benefit, right? And you want to make sure that you have the bandwidth to be able to do that. So you just want to make sure you have a clear definition of who your ideal customer is. And I worked with somebody in the past, and this is funny, we used to do reverse mortgages. And the question that, when you deal with reverse mortgages, the question was always like, do you like to work with elderly people? Because that's who a reverse mortgage is going to be for. If the answer is no, then don't do reverse mortgages. That's a good way to start. But he always asked the reciprocal question, which is, do elderly people like to work with you?
Mhm.
And so you want to make sure that it kind of goes both ways. Are you working with your ideal customers, and are you ideal person for your customer that you're trying to attract?
Yep. So, so important. So again, go through the workbook, take the time, fill that out. So the next is getting into your mission and your vision and your core values. And Matt talked about this at the beginning. And so every high performing business operates from a foundation of clarity. So having that clarity is very important. And that is your mission. That's your vision. Those core values. Those are the things when you share those, if you're recruiting, as far as how you're building your business, it helps to get your team aligned. They become stronger. Your business also becomes scalable because people know what that vision is. They also know what that mission is, and they know what they're working on. Amazingly enough, if they don't know what that is, then you're not going to get the buy-in from them, especially when things get tough. And so it's important to know that. And so when you have that and you have an idea of what that is, then that's when you shift from being reactive in your business to leading with intention. And that's why I say when you know your why, you know your way. So what is your why? What's your mission? What's your vision? And so getting into that, you need to break that mission statement. And I honestly believe you should do it every year. I think it's important, Matt, to realign with this because that can change. And so, what do you do? Why does it matter to your clients? Why does it matter to your partners? Getting into that, your vision statement. And this ties back to what we did as far as the vision in the last exercise. Where are you headed to? Your vision is your destination and what that looks like. And it's the big future for what you're building, what that vision is. And so then getting into your values. And this is something that's personal. So, your values become your non-negotiables. And it's just like what you said, Matt. It's like, you have a set as far as what you're looking for your ideal real estate partner. But if someone comes and they don't meet that, or they don't align with your values, what are you going to do? So that's when it comes down to you're going to be saying no. And that's when you have to say, that's part of your values. That's part of who I am. Right.
Yeah. So in my seat, right, obviously we talk over here at FirstFunding, we do talk to a lot of people that are moving from the broker to banker space. And I'm going to say probably less than 5% of business owners that I talk to have a good grasp of this. And it's actually somewhat challenging for me as someone who's trying to evaluate the company if they're going to be credible for a warehouse facility. Because oftentimes, and it's a very simple question, I'll just ask, what customer base are you looking to serve? And I almost inevitably I get everybody. Anyone who drops off an application on my desk, I want to. So you want to be everything to everybody? Like that's not really helping me figure out where I'm going to put you in the credit risk bucket, right? And I'm not saying that credit risk is the reason why you want to do this, but it would boggle my mind that if I was building out a company and I didn't have a clear mission and vision statement that I could easily tell somebody the elevator speech of my company, they don't have that built out, right? In a 60-second snippet. So that when someone asks you about your company, who you are and what you do, it's a very basic, very simple, has to have it type of conversation. I cannot imagine we go to any Fortune 500 company and in their employee handbook, they don't have a section that talks about their mission and their vision statements. Yep. And it absolutely changes on a year by year basis, if not even more than that. I've had lenders that come to me that want to start off as the best 2-person shop in Amarillo, Texas. And then I talk to them the next year, oh no, we want to be the best 10-person shop in all of Texas and Louisiana and Missouri. That's a different mission and that's a different vision, right? Yep. So you absolutely want to craft this on a regular basis.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the core values should always remain the same.
Right.
But the vision and the mission should definitely adjust with as you want to grow.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so the next section gets into something that we often let take over our business, and that's being a firefighter. And so most sales leader, I mean, you always, if you're in sales, you always feel like you're playing defense. And so if you're not putting out fires, you're answering urgent questions, you're reaching out, you're talking to client issues, partner issues, you're trying to keep up with the inbox chaos. And so when you get into this treadmill, then you become busy and exhausted. And the strategic work, the stuff that's going to really move the needle, gets pushed to later. And so what you want to do is you want to shift from being a firefighter to being a leader. And so the brutal truth is, if you don't control your calendar controls you. And yes, things come up. And yes, that's absolutely there. And business is important. But you still need to make that time to build yourself as a leader, to build your business, to be able to lead effectively. And you can't do that if your day is consumed with distractions. I remember one time, Remax brought me in to help them start their model mortgage franchise. And I did their new broker training for new franchisees every month. And they had a Remax agent who had bought a model mortgage franchise, did an overnight flight from the East Coast into Denver, where we were doing the 3-day workshop. And she overslept and she slept and she did not answer any of her emails from her team. And when she woke up, she freaked out and she started looking at her emails. Every single one of those fires that had come up because she didn't answer them because she was asleep got solved without her. And so sometimes we put ourselves in that middle position thinking we have to be the firefighter. But when you're leading your team the way that you should be leading your team as a leader, you have those people in place to help you make those decisions. So that's what I want you to think about in building that, is being that leader and being able to really defer those. And so block out the strategy sessions, and there's exercises in the workbook that will do that. Schedule, if you can't do 90 minutes a week, break them up into shorter ones, break them into 15 minutes. Matt, you talk about doing that. And then look at
that first bullet point gives me anxiety.
I know.
I can't do it's just not in my DNA. I've tried it in my career. I can't do 90-minute blocks. It freaks me out.
Yeah.
And it's okay, right? So
yeah, do what works for you. I mean, that's okay.
And
but
so
do block it in.
Yeah, I do. So I use an app on my email that allows people to put time on my calendar as they see fit, which I think is important for the business that I'm a part of. But my calendar is always kept up to date, and I always leave a 15-minute buffer between the appointments so that I have time to catch up with anything that I might have to do. In my calendar, I block off 25 minutes at a time. So I'll probably end up doing like a morning block off typically, and then an afternoon, maybe once it quiets down a little bit, maybe even after 5 o'clock. But a 25-minute block of the things. And then I'm very strategic about, I mean, it's pretty simple. I mean, I'm pretty simple. I got this board right here that
Mhm.
I write down the things that I need to get done or want to accomplish in the week or the day ahead. I don't go much beyond a week or a day because then I start getting anxiety about how many things I have to get done.
Mhm.
But if I write down the 5 or 6 things I need to get done tomorrow on Wednesday on that board before I shut down the office for the day, cross it off makes me feel 1,000 times better.
Exactly. And having that system in place, number one, what's a system that works for you? But I still block out some of that time for your planning on what you're doing and building your business, like completing this workbook, right? Put it on your calendar and just say, I'm gonna, 15 minutes, 3 days a week. This is what I'm gonna work on. The other thing is look at a task. If there's something you can delegate to someone else, delegate it. Take the
Well,
time, train them, and delegate it to them, right?
yeah, well, as you just said the right thing. Why don't I delegate? Because I'm afraid people are not going to do it as good as I do. I think that's a very human
It is.
reaction to have,
Yep.
right? Um, I need to challenge myself to become a better teacher then, because if I can't delegate something that's pretty simple and they can't understand what to do, that's a failure on me, not on them. And I need to really, that's one of those ones that I need to do a lot better in 2026 about. I mean, I just literally had this conversation today with someone who I need to fill out these forms. I'm like, I need to show someone to do this. And it's like, okay, well, you just gave yourself the own answer. Teach someone how to do it.
Yeah.
It's not that hard.
Yeah.
It's not rocket science.
Yeah, and people want to help. I mean, and people, when you give them that and you let go of something, then it empowers them. There's also a lot of things, there's tools you can use, to be able to say, you talked about ChatGPT, so there's a lot of AI tools. So look at some of those things. But going through that, what's something that you're doing that's on your plate that should be delegated, or something that you're not doing that should be done as well, because sometimes we miss those opportunities. And so part of that comes from what do you need to measure? So what are the metrics that measure that matter? And so, some leaders who track everything, but the successful leaders focus on a few of the metrics that actually move revenue. So that's the most important thing, right? It's like we need to look at what's moving the needle as far as revenue and building your team, whether it's recruiting, so you can move, increase revenue based on numbers from recruiting, whatever that is, you need to look at that. And then, think about where you stand, what's driving your growth, what you want to be driving your growth, and then look at those metrics and then measure those. So figuring out, what is that? Is it, what do you know what your pull through is? Do you know what your referrals? Do you know where they're coming from? It's not just applications, it's not just submissions, it's not just funded loans, but what's happening on the in between. And sometimes it's that in between where you could be tweaking one little thing that can increase your pull through. If you have referrals and you're working with your referral partners and you're working with people that are not sending you any business, but that's where 90% of your time is going, then you need to look at, hey, I'm spending, 5 hours a week with you and you haven't sent me a deal in 3 months. Stop spending time with that person. But you have to know what the numbers are, Matt, because if you don't know what the numbers, you don't know what to measure and you don't know where to tweak your business. So I think it's important to know that and to measure that.
Yeah, this really is a very important leadership topic because every successful sales organization does have a CRM that is supposed to do all this for you. But then you get the sales account executive or salesperson who doesn't put everything in the CRM. And then
Hmm.
for the data is, and you're like, well, if how can I measure the success if we don't have it in a CRM where I can easily give you the numbers to back out of and to track the referrals and to do everything like that? So it's two-way street, right? Yes, we need to back into our numbers, but I think everyone probably on this phone call has or has at least one time worked in a CRM that these are the things that it's built for. And the better you use it, the more powerful the tool is going to become. But going back to the account executive that I said that wanted to grow, 4x in 3 months. I know very specifically today what our average loans per close per active and producing customer is. And when I said, well, where are you going to find 100 new customers in 3 months? Right? I mean, that's the rationale that we need to start having with is, okay, if I want to go from 8 closings per month to 12 closings per month, how many more applications do I need to send? How many other referral partners do I need to do? How many speaking engagements do I need to do? How many activities do I need to do to get to that number? You need to have that, and you need to know that number on a regular basis.
Yep, very important. Okay, so here is your leadership development plan. So this is what you want to work on. The first thing is choose your first quarter skill. So what's the one leadership skill that you say, hey, Matt, Ginger, if I can work on this one thing, I know it's going to have a huge effect on my business. Maybe there's just some examples here, your strategic thinking, your difficult conversations, your delegation, deepening those client relationships. What's that one thing? And concentrate on that and say, what do I need to do in order to prove that? And then select your method. So how are you going to develop this skill? I was just at the NAM Focus Conference and is talking to a lot of people that they want to do more public speaking and they want to do more recording of videos and they're not comfortable with it. It's like, okay, then go and, find something that's going to help you improve. I was fortunate enough to be a Dale Carnegie trainer and many years ago and had a fantastic course that we taught, which is a 2-day workshop called the High Impact Presentations. It's 2 days. They work with you. They videotape you. It's like, go do that. Work on what you need to work on. Get a mentor, and then practice it and putting it into, part of your business is very important. And then building your daily habits. We all have the same amount of time in a day. Matt, you don't have any more than I do. Every single person on this call has the same amount of hours in a day. So how you manage yourself, how you manage your habits is important. And so you have to find what works for you. For Matt, that 90 minutes planning is not going to work. For me, that works for me. I do it first thing in the morning. I don't do it every day, but I do my planning on Monday and Friday. And it's in my schedule. Nobody can book time there. That's what works for me. So you have to find out what works for you, but make it part of your daily habit. And I think that's very important to be able to do that and then divide it into those quarters, something that's manageable for you. It doesn't have to be for the whole year. Say, okay, this quarter, this is what I'm going to work on, right? Okay. And then getting into your priorities. So whatever that is, figure out what that is. If it's your leadership growth, then work on that. What's the one leadership identity that or trait or skill that you're committing to that you want to develop this quarter? And then write out how you're going to embody that. And then your business priority, look at that on your revenue. What are you going to do to increase your revenue? What do you need to focus on in order to increase your revenue? And write down what that is. And then your immediate actions this week. What's the single most important action that you're going to take? Look at that as far as especially when you know your metrics, Matt. So building that is important to be able to do that. Okay. And then finally, the workbook that we have here is building your path forward. And so when you look at doing this and you say, I'm going to invest the time into this, then you're investing your real time into your leadership, into your business, into your future. But remember, and this I think is important, knowledge without action is just entertainment. I love this quote. I can't remember who said it, but it's so true because if you don't have the action, then you've just been entertained or you've just, it's spending time with us. It's like, we love spending time with all of you, but it's important to put this into action. And so you have to say, you know what, the real results, they're going to begin now. This is the year. This is when I leave this session. This is when I'm going to start implementing that. And so look at this, the 3-part formula that we have: lead with intention, align your goals with your daily habits, and then measure what matters. And so going through that in the workbook, and the workbook is a living document. It's something to print off, to fill out, to be able to go through that. And then remember, we're here too. Matt does a Non-Del Influencer podcast We have 2 of those every month. Stay connected to the community. Let us know what we can do to be able to help you grow in your business. That's part of what, Matt, when we did the sessions last year and started with that, we started off with 1 month and then started going from there. And we honestly, I don't think we even knew it was going to go as long. We ended up going 7 months instead of 6. But we got such great feedback on that. And it came from, what do you guys want? What do you need? Part of what we put together this year is based on the feedback that you gave us. So that's important to be able to do that, right?
Yeah, I think it was a really like there's just I can't say everyone is built the same, but it's really hard to sit down and it's not easy to write out your mission statement and your ideal customer. And when you're in a community like we are, and we bring, we'll have a handful of people that will join us live, but a ton of people will watch us on
Right.
recording. Um, it's good to know that other people are sitting in your seat as well, struggling with putting pen to paper. And this workbook and the sessions that we did, truly, I mean, I got a lot of positive feedback, like I said at the beginning, about how powerful it was and how basically breaking it down made them do the work in order to get started. Right. And then hopefully we'll hear from some people that took this in 2025, said, hey, it really helped. It impacted my business. And I'm looking forward to doing the same in 26.
Yep. Perfect. Okay, so guys, the next webinar is February 24th, Tuesday. Same time, same bat channel. So, and next month we're going to talk about vision casting. So taking some of the metrics, the goals, and how you can create that into your vision. So we're going to dive in deeper into that. I register everyone. So if you've already registered for this one, I'm going to register you for the next one. So you're not going to miss out on it. We do record every single session, and I do send follow-up emails of every single session. So if you miss a session, that's okay. I'm going to send you an email. If you miss the email, let your account executive know from FirstFunding, and they can definitely send you a copy of it as well. So, Matt, I want to thank you as always. You are an amazing leader, and I'm blessed to be able to have the opportunity to work with you. And I enjoy that each and every day. And for those of you who attended us, thank you so much, and we'll see you next month.